As far as we know, life is a unique entity of our planet, Earth. Scientists saw traces of life outside Earth, for which they searched for the presence of water. Hence, water may be otherwise known as the liquid of life, medium of life, symbol of life, etc. Life originated in the medium of water. Hence, we shall say, no water, no life. Water is vital not only for the origin, but also for the growth and development of all types of organisms. No water, no growth, no development. Do you know from where plants get water? Yes, soil is the main source of water for land plants. So in plants, there is a definite system for absorption and transport of water. Let us come to that aspect.
ਹੈਲੋ ਸਟੂਡੈਂਟਸ, ਜਿਵੇਂ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਜਾਣਦੇ ਹੀ ਹੋ ਕਿ ਪਾਣੀ ਸਾਰੇ ਲਿਵਿੰਗ ਆਰਗੇਨਿਜ਼ਮ ਦੇ ਲਈ ਬਹੁਤ ਇੰਪੋਰਟੈਂਟ ਹੈ। ਅਸੀਂ ਸਾਰੇ ਪਾਣੀ ਦੀ ਤਲਾਸ਼ ਵਿੱਚ ਇੱਧਰ-ਉੱਧਰ ਘੁੰਮ ਸਕਦੇ ਹਾਂ, ਪਰ ਪੌਦੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਘੁੰਮ ਸਕਦੇ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਕੋਲ ਕੇਵਲ ਇੱਕ ਹੀ ਜ਼ਰੀਆ ਹੈ, ਧਰਤੀ ਵਿਚਲੇ ਪਾਣੀ ਨੂੰ ਐਬਜ਼ੌਰਬ ਕਰਨਾ। ਐਬਜ਼ੌਰਪਸ਼ਨ ਵਿੱਚ ਉਸ ਦਾ ਰੂਟ ਸਿਸਟਮ ਉਸ ਦੀ ਹੈਲਪ ਕਰਦਾ ਹੈ। During a plant's life cycle, large amounts of water are continuously absorbed from the soil and transported to every part of the plant. Land plants get their water supply mainly from the soil. Water is the most important constituent of the plant body. Most herbaceous plants are made up of 85 to 90% water, and even woody parts of plants consist of as much as 50% water. At the same time, plants growing in soil are constantly losing large quantities of water by transpiration. Without the constant supply of water, the plant cannot carry on any of its physiological activities such as photosynthesis, respiration, and growth. Obviously, an understanding of the manner in which plants get water is really very important, and that is what we are going to study today. But before going into the details, first let me share the learning objectives for today's lesson.
Upon completion of this topic, learners will be able to discuss how plants absorb water, explain different pathways of water movement in roots, describe mechanism of water absorption, define ascent of sap, explain theories of ascent of sap.
Water absorption in plants. Students, have you ever wondered how water reaches the top of very tall trees? Basically, plants absorb water through the entire surface, roots, stems, and leaves. However, mainly the water is absorbed by roots. Do you know which part of the root does this function of initial absorption? Let us check it out.
The area of young roots where most absorption takes place is the root hair zone. The root hair are short-lived, being constantly replaced as new growth takes place. They are extensions of the epidermal cells. They have sticky walls by which they adhere tightly to soil particles. As the root hairs are extremely thin and large in number, they provide enormous surface area for absorption. They take in water from the intervening spaces, mainly by osmosis. Once inside the root hair, the water needs to be transferred to the xylem, the vascular tissue involved in water transport through the plant.
ਬੱਚਿਓ, ਪੌਦੇ ਦੀਆਂ ਜੜ੍ਹਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ वाटर concentration gradient होने दे कारण रूट हेयर सेल विच एंटर होया पानी कॉर्टेक्स तो एंडोडर्मिस विच ऑस्मोसिस राही कंटिन्यूसली जांदा रहंदा है. The main route taken by the water is through the cellulose cell walls. The rest of the water either passes through the cytoplasm of the cells or via the cell vacuoles. Once it reaches the endoderm cells, the water is forced to move through the cytoplasm. Students, this water in the roots moves by two pathways. These two pathways are symplast pathway and apoplast pathway. Let us discuss these one by one.
Symplast pathway. In symplast pathway, the movement of water molecules is from cell to cell through the plasmodesmata. These plasmodesmata are narrow channels that act as intercellular cytoplasmic bridges to facilitate communication and transport of materials between plant cells. The plasmodesmata forms a network of cytoplasm of all cells. During symplastic movement, the water travels through the cells, their cytoplasm. Intercellular movement is through the plasmodesmata. Water has to enter the cells through the cell membrane. Hence, the movement is relatively slower. Second pathway of water movement is apoplast pathway. In this pathway, water passes exclusively through the intercellular spaces and walls of the cell. Means here, water passes without the involvement of any membranes. Most of the water flow in the roots occurs via the apoplast, since the cortical cells are loosely packed and hence offer no resistance to water movement. However, the inner boundary of the cortex, the endodermis, is impervious to water because of a band of suberized matrix called the Casparian strip. Casparian strip is basically a layer of impermeable lignin and suberin in the walls of endodermal cells, preventing diffusion of material through that portion of the wall. Here, water molecules are unable to penetrate the layer and follow the symplast pathway. The water then moves through the symplast and crosses a membrane to reach the xylem cells. Once inside the xylem, water is again free to move between cells as well as through them. Some plants have additional structures associated with them that help in water and mineral absorption. Mycorrhiza is a symbiotic association between a fungus and roots of a plant. The fungal filaments form a network around the young root, or they penetrate the root cells. The hyphae have a very large surface area that absorb water from the soil from a much larger volume of soil that perhaps a root cannot do. From here, water reaches the xylem cells as shown in the visual.
In this association, the fungus provides minerals and water to the roots. In turn, the roots provide sugars and nitrogen-containing compounds to mycorrhizae. Some plants have an obligate association with the mycorrhizae. For example, pinus seeds cannot germinate and establish without the presence of mycorrhizae. So children, these were the two pathways by which water moves through roots. Now let us discuss the mechanism of water absorption. ਸਮੇਂ-ਸਮੇਂ ਤੇ ਵੱਖ-ਵੱਖ ਸਾਇੰਟਿਸਟ ਨੇ ਵਾਟਰ ਐਬਜ਼ੌਰਪਸ਼ਨ ਨੂੰ ਐਕਸਪਲੇਨ ਕਰਨ ਲਈ ਕਈ ਮੈਕੈਨਿਜ਼ਮਸ ਪ੍ਰਪੋਜ਼ ਕੀਤੇ। 1949 ਵਿੱਚ P.J. ਕ੍ਰੇਮਰ ਨੇ ਵਿਚਾਰ ਪੇਸ਼ ਕੀਤਾ ਕਿ ਵਾਟਰ ਐਬਜ਼ੌਰਪਸ਼ਨ ਦੇ ਦੋ ਇੰਪੋਰਟੈਂਟ ਮੈਕੈਨਿਜ਼ਮਸ ਹਨ। ਇਹ ਹਨ active absorption, passive absorption. In active absorption, water is absorbed due to the activities going on in roots. Active transport describes what happens when a cell uses energy to transport something. So, active absorption is the energy demanding transfer of water across a cell membrane against its concentration gradient, that is, from lower concentration to higher concentration. So, we can say that absorption of water occurs with the help of energy in the form of ATP, which is released due to metabolic activities of root cells such as respiration. Absorption takes place against concentration gradient even when the concentration of cell sap is lower than that of soil water. While active transport requires energy and work, passive absorption does not. There are several different types of this easy movement of molecules. It could be as simple as molecules moving freely like in osmosis and diffusion.
There are proteins in the cell membrane that act as channels to help the movement along, and of course, there is an in-between transport process where very small molecules are able to cross a semi-permeable membrane. So, passive absorption takes place along the concentration gradient when the concentration of cell sap is higher than that of soil water. Water is absorbed when transpiration rate is high or soil is dry.
Students, due to high transpiration rate, water deficit is created in transpiring cells. Rapid transpiration removes water and reduces turgor pressure in living cells of root. The suction force thus developed is transmitted to root xylem. It pulls water from surrounding root cells to make up water deficit. ਜਿਵੇਂ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਜਾਣਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਵਸਕੂਲਰ ਪਲਾਂਟਸ ਵਿੱਚ ਜ਼ਾਈਲਮ ਅਤੇ ਫਲੋਏਮ ਟਰਾਂਸਪੋਰਟ ਟਿਸ਼ੂਜ਼ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਹਨ। ਵਾਟਰ ਅਤੇ ਮਿਨਰਲਸ ਲੰਮੇ ਦਰਖਤਾਂ ਦੇ ਟੌਪ ਤੱਕ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਪਹੁੰਚਦੇ ਹਨ, ਇਸ ਨੂੰ ਡਿਟਰਮਿਨ ਕਰਨ ਲਈ ਪਲਾਂਟ ਫਿਜ਼ੀਓਲੋਜਿਸਟ ਨੇ ਕਈ ਐਕਸਪੈਰੀਮੈਂਟਸ ਕੀਤੇ। ਪਾਣੀ ਦੀ ਪੌਦੇ ਦੇ ਰੂਟਸ ਤੋਂ ਏਰੀਅਲ ਪਾਰਟਸ ਤੱਕ ਦੀ ਵਰਟੀਕਲ ਕੰਡਕਸ਼ਨ ਨੂੰ ascent of sap ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਹਨ। So, ascent of sap can be defined as the upward movement of water from the root system to the aerial parts of the plant through the xylem. It occurs mainly through xylem. Various theories explaining ascent of sap have been put forward. The important ones are root pressure theory, cohesion-tension theory. Let us discuss these theories one by one. Root pressure theory. This theory was proposed by Priestley. According to this theory, the movement of water from soil to root hair and then to cells takes place due to hydrostatic pressure developed in xylem. This is called root pressure. At night, when the rate of transpiration is low, the roots keep on accumulating minerals and water. Here, the root pressure pushes the xylem sap into the shoot system. More water enters the leaves than is transpired. Therefore, the excess is forced as guttation through specialized structures called hydatodes. The root pressure can be easily observed. Let us check it out.
Take a potted plant, water it thoroughly, cut off the top of the plant. We will soon see drops of xylem sap oozing out of the cut portion of shoot. This comes out due to positive root pressure.
Root pressure. Students, if we fix a rubber tube to this cut end, like this, we can collect the xylem sap and measure the rate of exudation. The root pressure depends on the presence of salts and minerals in the xylem sap, because the presence of solutes lower the water potential in the xylem vessel. The low water potential of the xylem sap compared to that of soil solution attracts water as water flows from a region of higher water potential to a region of lower water potential. Continuous absorption of water by root hair help to develop root pressure, which is responsible to raise water up to a certain height only. It does not account for water movement up the xylem in very tall trees. Root pressure theory ਨੂੰ ਪੜਨ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਹੁਣ ਸਮਾਂ next theory ਵੱਲ ਵਧਣ ਦਾ ਹੈ, ਜੋ ਹੈ the cohesion-tension theory. ਇਹ theory Dickson and Joly ਨੇ propose ਕੀਤੀ. ਇਸ theory ਦੇ main features ਇਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਹਨ.
Cohesion-tension theory. This theory is based on the cohesive and adhesive properties of water molecules and transpiration pull. A continuous column is formed right from root hair of water from the cells of leaves is responsible for developing negative pressure, that is, pull. This pressure is known as transpiration pull, which is strong enough to pull up the column of water to great height. Water molecules are electrically attracted to each other and are held together by hydrogen bonding. They have high cohesive forces between them and help to develop a water column of great tensile strength. The cell walls of xylem vessels, which are made up of lignin cellulose, have strong affinity for water molecules. Xylem vessels are tubular structures extending from root to the top of the plant. Cells are placed one above the other with their ends perforated, forming a continuous tube. These are supported by xylem tracheids, which have pores in their walls. Once the water enters into root cells, water is filled inside the xylem capillaries, and due to cohesion and adhesion property of water molecules, it forms a continuous water column. Here, the column formed is just like a steel rope. The negative pressure is generated due to the process of transpiration, and water is pulled in the shoot region. Loss of water from mesophyll cells causes a decrease in water potential as the cell sap becomes more concentrated. So, the water moves from higher water potential level to lower water potential level. Finally, the movement of water within the leaf is transmitted. This exerts a pull, and water present in column comes under tension. This tension, generated at the top, is transmitted downwards from leaf to stem and finally reaches up to the root. It all results in upward movement of water.
Students, this is how water moves from the root system to the aerial parts of the plants. And with this, we conclude our lesson. Let us summarize what we have learned so far. The area of young roots where most absorption takes place is the root hair zone. The root hair are short-lived, being constantly replaced as new growth takes place. Water in the roots moves by two pathways. These two pathways are symplast pathway and apoplast pathway. In symplast pathway, the movement of water molecules is from cell to cell through the plasmodesmata. Plasmodesmata are narrow channels that act as intercellular cytoplasmic bridges to facilitate communication and transport of materials between plant cells. In apoplast pathway, water passes exclusively through the intercellular spaces and walls of the cell. Means, here water passes without the involvement of any membranes. Casparian strip is a layer of impermeable lignin and suberin in the walls of endodermal cells, preventing diffusion of material through that portion of the wall. Mycorrhiza is a symbiotic association between a fungus and roots of a plant. P. J. Kramer in 1949 proposed that water is absorbed by two important mechanisms. These are active absorption and passive absorption. Active absorption is the energy demanding transfer of water across a cell membrane against its concentration gradient, that is, from its lower concentration to its higher concentration. Passive absorption takes place along the concentration gradient when the concentration of cell sap is higher than that of soil water. Water is absorbed when transpiration rate is high. Ascent of sap can be defined as the upward movement of water from the root system to the aerial parts of the plant through the xylem. It occurs mainly through xylem. Various theories explaining ascent of sap have been put forward. The important ones are root pressure theory, cohesion-tension theory. Root pressure theory was proposed by Priestley. According to this theory, the movement of water from soil to root hair and then to cells takes place due to hydrostatic pressure developed in xylem. This is called root pressure. So students, enough for today. Let us quickly check with some short questions what you have grabbed today. Be attentive. Here are some questions. The first question is, name the part of roots which help in absorption of water. And the answer is, root hair help in absorption of water. Next question is, list two main pathways of water movement in root. The answer is, water in the roots moves by two pathways. These two pathways are symplast pathway and apoplast pathway. Here comes the next question. What are plasmodesmata? The answer is, plasmodesmata are narrow channels that act as intercellular cytoplasmic bridges to facilitate communication and transport of materials between plant cells. Next question. What is apoplast pathway of water absorption? Answer. In apoplast pathway, water passes exclusively through the intercellular spaces and walls of the cell. Means water passes without the involvement of any membranes. The next question is, define Casparian strip. The answer is, Casparian strip is a layer of impermeable lignin and suberin in the walls of endodermal cells, preventing diffusion of material through that portion of the wall. And the next question is, name two mechanisms of water absorption. The answer is, P.J. Kramer in 1949 proposed that water is absorbed by two important mechanisms. These are active absorption and passive absorption. The next question is, what is active absorption? The answer is, active absorption is the energy demanding transfer of water across a cell membrane against its concentration gradient, that is, from lower concentration of water to higher concentration of water. Next question. What is ascent of sap? The answer is, the upward movement of water from the root system to the aerial parts of the plant through the xylem is called ascent of sap. The next question is, what role does root pressure play in water movement in plants? The answer is, root pressure helps in upward movement of water in herbaceous plants. Next question. What is cohesion-tension theory? Answer. Cohesion-tension theory. This theory is based on the cohesive and adhesive properties of water molecules and transpiration pull. A continuous column is formed right from root hair up to leaves. Evaporation of water from the cells of leaves is responsible for developing negative pressure, that is pull. This pressure is known as transpiration pull, which is strong enough to pull up the column of water to great heights. The next question is, what are xylem vessels? The answer is, xylem vessels are tubular structure extending from root to the top of the plant. Cells are placed one above the other with their ends perforated, forming a continuous tube. These are supported by xylem tracheids which have pores in their walls. ਮੈਨੂੰ ਉਮੀਦ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਟੌਪਿਕ ਸੰਬੰਧੀ ਸਾਰੇ ਕਨਸੈਪਟ ਸਮਝਾਉਣ ਦੀ ਆਪਣੀ ਕੋਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਫਲ ਹੋਈ ਹਾਂ। ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਕੋਆਪਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਅਤੇ ਧਿਆਨ ਦੇਣ ਲਈ ਬਹੁਤ-ਬਹੁਤ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ। ਅਗਲੀ ਕਲਾਸ ਵਿੱਚ ਫਿਰ ਮਿਲਾਂਗੇ। ਉਦੋਂ ਤੱਕ ਲਈ ਅਲਵਿਦਾ। ਗੁੱਡ ਬਾਏ।